Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very big privilege and very big honor to be back in Seoul with the wonderful Seoul Philharmonic. So I welcome you to this program, which consists of very, very famous pieces, Dvorak Concerto for the Violoncello and the famous symphony of Sergei Sergeyevich Prokofiev No. 5. It's a symphony written in the times of Second World War, 1944, and it's addressed to the humanity, underline the importance of humanity in that world when there were bombs falling on Russia and bombs falling on everywhere else in Europe. So it was a big, big disaster. And nowadays, to play and perform this Symphony No. 5, it feels like we haven't learned much from the history because we still have the same problems. And when one wants to speak about the message of the Fifth Symphony of Prokofiev, I think the message is that we shouldn't forget about our past and we should try to, no matter how difficult the present is, no matter how big the political problems between nations, between leaders of the nations are, still the ideal for us, that would be the dramaturgical political message of this symphony. As a structure, it's of course first movement form of sonata, very, very classical, like very often in Prokofiev. Second movement is a toccata. Third movement is, for me, is the center of the dramaturgical subject of this symphony, where we actually start like in a dream. The violins start this wonderful tune. First is the winds and then violins, which already in the beginning goes to quite emotional, almost sadness, I would say. When the violins go extremely high, it's typical Prokofiev. Now he loves to put the piccolo in the fourth octave and the tuba in the contra octave. So he loves those just, we start in the middle and it goes, and those moments are of intense beauty, but intense sadness as well. And then we go through this movement all of a sudden in C minor section, about in the half of the third movement, it comes to a melody come pim pa pam 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 pim pa pa pam, and that for me is a funeral march. It's actually written in C minor, the tonality which very often the funeral marches are written. And it's a symbolic thing, whether it's a funeral march or not. I mean, this is difficult to say, but I think that the feeling of this is quite sad. Something really, really bad is preparing. And a couple of minutes later, we will reach the unheard pain when we play the famous ba da 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 dee da with the violins and the trombone swing pa pa pi pa pa pi pa pa pa. It's intense emotions, intense pain. It's actually really painful from many points of view, also because of the dynamics. It's really one of the loudest spots of the symphony, but it's the intensity of that spot which is really scary, I would say, even scary. And then after that, we sort of come back to the beginning and go back to the dream, which is no longer the same after we played. The beginning is just a dream, and then we understand that the world has changed. And then the fourth movement gives optimism and shows that despite all the disaster that happens or happened to us, music still has the power to say, this is the path. And there is where Prokofiev shows his really profound dedication of encouraging the human part, the positive part of every single being, and saying the world can actually be great. And we can make it great for each and every person. So this is the real subject of this symphony. And we're trying to make sort of a trip from the beginning, where we start quite neutral, with a tune, very simple tune, da da dee da 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 dee, and the last movement, pam 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 pi do do la do 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 dee. It's very, very simple. It seems simple music, but it's beautiful, and it addresses really the positive sides. That's how I think that would be the message also to the audience, to try to understand this and take the music of this great composer as a real, not only musical jewel, but also as a really important message for peace and humanity. I am an absolute fan of Kian Soltani. It's the first time that we play together, and I've heard of him because he comes from Austria, I come from Slovenia, so it's neighbor countries. And I know that he knows a lot about my country as well. I studied in Austria, so I know his country, and he knows my country for private reasons, but also for musical reasons. So it felt like when we were introduced yesterday, it felt like family immediately. And it felt like family off stage and on stage as well. There was not much talking, and we just played music, and it was actually very inspiring collaboration with him, and I became a fan of Kian Soltani immediately. So wonderful cellist and big privilege. I'm very much looking forward each time that I'm allowed to come back here, because I love not only professionalism of this orchestra, where all the musicians really want to progress, get to know the piece better, try to work on the small details, despite the fact that we maybe know that the acoustic will not be ideal and maybe those small details will not be heard, but we do it for us. And this enormous work that we did in those days of rehearsals are so uplifting also for me. So this orchestra gives a lot of positive energy back to me, and I'm trying to give as much as I can to this relatively young orchestra, I would say, still is, and you can feel this energy. It's a great orchestra, and I think I love how the sound, how you can shape the sound here. It really is incredible. And then the other thing which I love about Seoul Philharmonic is once you go through the basics of our job and speaking about rhythm, intonation, articulation, everything, then when you point out what is important for you, they really listen and they will exactly try to do what you ask them, despite the fact that they maybe have done it 3 months ago with a completely different idea, but they are really dedicated to try to make your idea work. And I am listening to what they offer and trying to see if those ideas maybe are better than mine. So I listen, and it's a mutual collaboration. That's why I think it is one of the world's greatest orchestras, and I'm very much happy to be here each time. And it is just the relationship between the orchestra and myself is, I hope, progressing. I'm very, very honored, actually, I would say, to be here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this introduction was not too long and the information I gave were not maybe too detailed, but we would like to invite you to follow what this wonderful orchestra is doing, not only in this concert, but especially for all the season. We need support of arts, and I think that Seoul Philharmonic is an orchestra which definitely deserves every attention of the audience, and I would like to welcome you to all the concerts of this wonderful orchestra and wish, of course, the orchestra and you all the best for this season and many more to come.